Welcome to the wild, wild west of adulting with your co-hosts and Yeti Estienne and Christina Farinacci Roberts. The wild, wild west of adulting is a virtual road trip with two BFFs and entrepreneurs navigating the uncertainty and possibility of pursuing life off the beaten path. And what a more timely time than now, with all of the uncertainty going on with COVID-19. Everyone's quarantining, everyone's self-isolating, everyone's social distancing. They're cooped up in their homes and they're trying to figure out what comes next. So, Christina, I'm going to toss it over to you because I've known you to be a hustler for as long as we've been friends, since second grade. You've been trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. Okay. So I feel like you are in a good a position as anybody to be thinking outside of the box on how to make this quarantine work for you. So go. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling right now when it comes to getting your hustle
Well, I feel like I've been preparing for this my whole life. So basically, one of the side effects of like growing up in a family that doesn't have money is from a very young age, you start figuring out how you can make money. I remember selling lemonade, making friendship bracelets at the local park with the community center and selling my little friendship bracelets. I remember convincing my mom's friends who had kids that were much younger, like babies, to let me babysit. In retrospect, I think I was way too young to be taking care of infants, but um, they let me do that. So I got my hustle on that way. And so I feel like I worked three jobs while I was in college. Like I've always worked and done school or worked. When you're a teacher, every teacher I know has a side hustle. It's part of like what you have to do to survive. So I'm seeing a lot where people are looking to take some of their hobbies or their passions and now maybe either are have been playing with them and are trying to make them a little more serious, or um have never considered doing it as a business or as a side hustle, and now they are. Like one of my baby boot camp moms, I saw that she started making birthday cakes, like really like the fancy ones that are, I don't even know how she's making them, but they're really like legit. I've seen other people do like Etsy based things, like where they're crafting, or what are those? Is it Cricut machine? Like that's like all the rage now. Like people can make their own t-shirts and things on top of wine glasses or whatever. So I just think this is again like all of that perfect storm of um now, instead of just like people like me who are like born with a hustler spirit, I feel like now everybody's getting on the hustler bandwagon. I don't know what you think.
Well, so I did see a woman who does balloons. So she does balloons for special occasions. People are not having as many parties, but she was in a bit of a tight spot. So she needed a can of Lysol, a thing of toilet paper, and I think some wipes. And so she literally had this bundle of balloons she was bartering for all of those items. And there was one mom who was like, hey, my 4-year-old's really bummed we had to cancel this party. I will totally give you my Lysol, my toilet paper, and my wipes in exchange for those
Wait, is this
balloons.
like
So
the Chrissy Teigen thing with the banana bread and the lettuce?
exactly. I saw Chrissy Teigen posted that, she had just couldn't been able to find any romaine lettuce anywhere. The grocery store shelves, as you know, have been cleared out. And so she was bartering a loaf of banana bread, but then John Legend got involved and was like, hey, Chrissy, I know you are well intentioned, but you can't give away all the banana bread. So she ended up negotiating half of a loaf of banana bread, met a guy that she met on Twitter or on Instagram, and exchanged at a social distance away the banana bread for the romaine lettuce. So
She's
people are
like,
getting
lay the banana bread right over here. Step.
stand up and walk away, and nobody gets hurt. It's like, so I've seen a lot of that going on. But since you did take a walk down memory lane for jobs, I mean, I've had a lot of interesting jobs in my day. Like you said, I did babysit, and I think middle school, I played soccer, and I was like, guys, I got to quit the team because I got to start hustling. I was babysitting from middle school, got that hustler spirit going in me. I'd say my most interesting job, I mean, I've interned at like cancer research institutes because I did sciences, and that was always questionable because I realized I was, as not an introvert in a work sense. I like working and interacting with others. And so being isolated in the lab wasn't my thing. But it paid really well in college to do these odd jobs. And so I did make coffee for a local anatomy lab for medical students. And so it was like coffee, tea, cadaver, milk, sugar, cadaver. I mean, it's like I've seen it all. I've seen it all. So, I just don't knock that hustler spirit. I mean, there have been times I've had 2, 3 jobs at a time, but I think it definitely keeps you on your toes and it keeps you figuring out what's my next way to sort of reinvent myself and think about how can I take what my current skill sets are and build upon those. So what I've seen is a lot of makeup artists, for example, right? Maybe they're not able to do individual one-on-one consultations, but could they then pivot that and turn it into a tutorial online? A lot of folks are at home right now and they're trying to still keep their cute going on while they're under quarantine. Maybe, we've always said on this podcast that pants are optional, but that doesn't mean that you can't, from the neck up, try to, zhuzh things up a little bit, if not just for your own peace of mind. So I've seen a lot of that going on. I'm not sure if if this is resonating with you with what you're seeing out there, Christina.
Yeah, I think anybody in a service industry has had to try to think about how they can reinvent themselves or repackage what they do. So, yep, makeup artists, hairstylists as well, like being able to, teach somebody how to do a braid on their kids' hair or do a braid on themselves, or styling. Stylists are another one where they can kind of either do one-on-one Zoom tutorial, not tutorial, but like going through somebody's closet, like somebody shows them like, here are all my things, and then they can help what they would have done like in person. Fitness trainers, personal trainers, gym owners, like my gym. I just on Saturday went to pick up my, not Saturday, Sunday rather, pick up a barbell, the free weights, an ab mat, a jump rope. And so she's been holding Zoom classes the same times we would normally have class at the gym. And then because not everybody has the exact same equipment, she's providing different ways to scale it and modify it. But that's a way I think those people are trying to stay alive. I've seen that with the yoga classes too. A lot of yoga studios are doing that so that they can still pay their yoga instructors for teaching classes, and their members and their clients can still have access to that. I'm seeing also some teachers are taking advantage of, obviously they have to work during the day for their regular stuff, but more people are getting into tutoring or teaching other things outside of their subject area. I think that this is actually a great time for people who are in that position where eventually when they can go back to doing their regular way of doing things, but if you've already established another way to generate an income, like that's fantastic. So the only thing I would say, my suggestion, I guess, is finding ways that like you could record something once and be able to keep reselling that versus the one-on-ones via Zoom. I mean, those are helpful because you can still get an income stream, but it's like you're trading time for money again. So anytime that you can leverage that and do something once and continue to get paid on it is obviously going to be the most ideal.
Yeah. And I think, we talk a lot about the gig economy, and I think people have sort of a narrow view of what gig means, whether it's you're driving for Uber or you're delivering, groceries for one of the larger sort of online e-commerce players right now. But I think there's so many different types of side hustles. I mean, I have friends who've, dabbled in real estate, although their day job might be, in sales and marketing. Yeah, or financial services, and they're also pursuing something, maybe more creative on the sidelines, or maybe they're a CPA, an accountant, and so they have a day job, but in the evenings around tax season, they prepare people's taxes. So I think there's a wide range of the types of side hustles you can have, and now is a great time to sort of get clear on what your skills are that you can build upon, repackage them, and also thinking about how to repurpose them. So we've seen a lot of different companies now getting their side hustles on in this new COVID-19 era, if you will. It was interesting to see a company like Nike, for example, repurposing their apparel capabilities and building out face masks for protective equipment for hospital workers. We've also seen distilleries or breweries turning their ability to
Yeah,
manufacture.
one of our local ones is doing that.
Yeah, that would be otherwise used to manufacture alcohol you would drink, and now turning that into making hand sanitizer. We've seen companies like automobile manufacturers now getting into the game of manufacturing ventilators for people who need to help and support breathing during this time as they're healing from the disease. And so we're seeing a lot of that retrofitting happening at the company level. And I think that we can also do a little bit of that proactively for ourselves, whether we are our own small business owners or entrepreneurs, or maybe we're in a job that, quite frankly, hasn't stimulated us in some time and we're a little bored and maybe not sure of whether we're getting laid off or we're recently laid off. We talked a lot about folks who, have that hustler spirit, but through no fault of their own, through the policy changes and the stay at home and shelter in place, physically can't go to work. So what do you do? What do you do during this season where you're not able to do what you would normally do? How do you sort of retrofit your skills for the new times we're living in? And so I think that it helps when you sort of apply a rigorous process or framework to it. I know Christine and I have been bouncing ideas around, and we were thinking, everybody's out there spring cleaning their closets. Wouldn't this be a great time to spring clean your skills, right? And so perhaps maybe a year ago or so, you did the whole Marie Kondo thing. I know I did do that. I had some clothes in my closet that I have been carrying.
She means enough to clothe
Small
like
army.
Caribbean islands.
Okay, in my defense, I was on this weight loss plan schedule, like season of life, where I was like, I basically had 5 different sizes in my closet, and I was, I don't know, holding on to some of them aspirationally because I was like, oh, remember I used to be that size, maybe one day I'll wear it again, even knowing it's no more in fashion, but just exciting to have it as a nostalgic thing, and then holding on to bigger things that, quite frankly, I just needed to let go of, because when you let go of certain things, you make room for new energy to come in, does it spark joy, as Marie Kondo would say. So really thinking about, how do we spring clean our skills, Christina? So I'd love to hear your perspective on this, because this is a challenging time for most, and it's hard to figure out where to begin. It's also an emotional time, so a lot of people are processing this differently. Maybe you were a person that went hard and hustled, and now this is the first time you're being still in a long while, and it's hard for you to sort of really adjust to this quote unquote new normal everybody's talking about, but doesn't certainly feel normal to you. So what is the first step? How do we start with this whole idea of spring cleaning our skills? What would you recommend?
I actually want to take a pause and rewind before we get into the strategy. I think one of the things we talked about doing for this episode was um, being really transparent, not just about, we've shared different experiences we've had in the past. And I just want to make sure the audience knows this is not something that's totally in the rearview mirror, that we're very much in the seats of many of the people who might be listening or watching right now, in terms of feeling uncertain and maybe a little unstable. Each of us have businesses that we've been developing, and we had a certain product offerings and services that we thought was going to be the primary source of how we would generate income. And even though we have 2 different industries that we're in, the fact that we were looking to be able to do things in a certain way, and now with the mass quarantining and mandatory quarantining, we're not going to be able to do that. Like, we're very much in, like, part of the creation of this podcast is a result of knowing we had to pivot in some ways and start thinking about how we could package our services in a different way, and maybe shift what those services are altogether. In terms of me and education, I'm used to going into a school building and helping leaders or teachers with how they can improve the teaching and learning that's happening. And now schools have been sort of flipped upside down. Some schools have been much more prepared to make this transition very seamless, and some this really hit them out of nowhere, even though one would argue it shouldn't have hit them out of nowhere because we saw where this was going eventually. And so now it's like I'm not only thinking about what can I do now to generate income, which, you know, if it, whether it's an online course or a digital course or professional development planning, I'm thinking about when we eventually get out of this hole or this bubble, what what will my existing clientele need then that they might not have needed 3 weeks ago? And like, I need to be ahead of that curve. So I don't know if you want to speak to that at all before we go into the spring cleaning.
Yeah, I mean, I think to be totally vulnerable, right? Christina talked about how this is not a new season for us. We've actually, it's hard to say, been ahead of the curve on this feeling of uncertainty and sort of navigating these uncharted waters. I mean, for me, it was a few years back being laid off from a corporate executive role and really ultimately hitting rock bottom because for so many years, my identity was tied up into my title, the company I worked for, the clients I served. And, you know, it was great. I was advising Fortune 10 clients. I had really incredible opportunity to put my handprint on and shape healthcare solutions, wellness products and services that would touch millions of Americans. But, you know, after leaving that behind, had to figure out, well, how do I define for myself in absence of a company, a team, a title, what my value is and what impact I want to have on the world, and ultimately what I want my legacy to be. And I knew that it was going to be non-traditional because I've done a lot of work in innovation. So a lot of things I've built haven't existed before. A lot of them have been the result of disruption, whether it's technology disruption, whether it's new competitors coming into the marketplace and eating your lunch, so to speak. And so it really forced me to think in ways, unorthodox ways, outside of the box ways that I think then translated into my own journey and my own path of navigating. Doesn't mean we're not scared. No, we're terrified. I mean, we talked with one another and say, can you believe what's going on? Yes, but have we developed a certain skill set and a confidence and a willingness to take risks despite the uncertainty? Absolutely. It builds up in you a courage that you might not have had otherwise when everything was safe and stable. And I, quite honestly, I know entrepreneurship isn't for everybody. And I have, you know, friends and family and say, you know, wouldn't it be better if you know, get a safe and stable and secure position? But having come out of an experience where, you know, I've been laid off, I know nothing is stable, nothing is secure or guaranteed, nothing is promised. And so to the extent that we're able to understand that things may be temporary and that we actually have to build up our agility, our flexibility, be able to navigate these shifts, the more it softens the blow, if you will. So I think a lot of it starts in the mindset, but a lot of it also comes from practice and taking those little baby steps that get you more and more comfortable with navigating uncertain times. But I think that's something both of us have been resonating with. We feel it along with you. And it's a large reason why we created this space and this forum so we could talk about some of these difficult things and challenges that we're all facing, because we know these are skills that we're all going to have to develop over time to be able to make it through to the other side.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, okay, so back to the spring cleaning of our skills. You know, this is actually something that we want to have a more in-depth conversation in and training through a, I don't know if a course or workshop, however you want to put it, that we'll be putting out there. But I think on a basic level, you know, when we think about spring cleaning our skills, it's sort of similar to, you mentioned Marie Kondo, that method of like, okay, I'm going to take everything in my closet and it goes into one of three piles. It's like keep, donate, give away, like throw away, basically. And I think when it comes to your own skills, it's trying to figure out, just like sometimes you were saying, like you were holding on to a piece of clothing that even if you were able to fit into it, it's like out of style, out of date. You know, you might take a look at your resume and have something about, what is the old version of like a computer, and I can't think of like an old computer skill that's like kind of obsolete. It was the thing before Microsoft Word and Excel. I forgot what the other platform was. But anyway, it would be the equivalent of somebody keeping that on their resume when you're like, nobody even uses that software anymore. So kind of figuring out, are there skills that you have acquired and developed, but maybe like don't, they're not as useful anymore. Or are there skills that you've been starting to work on, but you know you need to cultivate and strengthen? Like for myself, I'm a complete technophobe. I was born in 1980. I might as well be 88 years old when it comes to technology. I have like I almost have like a phobia around it, which is bad because it like perpetuates you continuing to be bad at it because you're avoiding it. I have the same thing at the gym, right? It's like there are certain moves I'm like, oh, I'm so bad at snatches. Okay, well, it's because I don't do snatches because I feel like I'm bad at them. And then I don't want to do something that I'm bad at because then it makes me feel like I'm not good at it, but I'm not going to get better at it unless I actually practice, right? So I feel like figuring out what are the skills that you need to force yourself to get better on, because maybe they're not a natural skill set of yours, but you know that they're necessary for the work that you are doing. Like I did wind up taking a Google Classrooms level 1 training because I was like, if I'm asking my teachers to do it, then I need to, lead by example and get myself familiar with those things.
No, I think that totally makes sense. And some of these skills may not even be on your resume. I mean, we talked earlier jokingly about the bartering with the balloons for the Lysol or the banana bread for the romaine lettuce, but it's like Chrissy Teigen is a supermodel, right? That's how she, that's her day job, but she's great at cooking. And so she was able to use a skill set that maybe didn't show up on her resume to actually be able to add value exchange for something that she needed. And so it's really figuring out those things that maybe folks around you know that you're good at. It doesn't always have to be technical skills. Sometimes there are softer skills. Maybe you're good at leading teams or bringing people together. You're good at public speaking. I mean, there's other skills that maybe you can harness.
You're the Pinterest mom who's like, poor Jackson, his birthday parties, I'm like showing up to Target on the day of like 45 minutes before people came home. His last party that I actually invited people to come to, I was at Target. Nothing was matching because they didn't have like full sets of stuff. So like the cups were Mickey Mouse, the plates were Batman, but then there's other moms who, it's not that they're event planners, but they might as well be event planners because it's a whole spectacular, like 5-star event, right? So I love that you're bringing up the fact that your skill set you can be skilled at things that you're not getting paid for on a regular basis.
Yeah, yeah. So we want to hear from you. What are those skills? If you were to ask your BFF right now, what are the things you're great at? What would come to mind? It doesn't have to be on your
What do
own.
you think I'm great at?
Oh my goodness. What seemed like a useless skill in the past of picking karaoke songs now has turned out to be quite valuable in our old age. So I feel like you just never know what folks are going to say, and you can use that as cues and clues from which to build upon. So I would encourage you, as a little homework assignment for today, ask 1 to 3 friends. 1 to 3 friends, what's one thing that when they think of you immediately comes to mind? Something that you're great at, something that you're skilled at, something that you're known for. Okay.
Something that they like when they have a question about something or they want to do something, like you're their go-to person.
You're the go-to person. You're the go-to person. Because we're gonna be developing out this spring cleaning your skills workshop. And also this is an opportunity for you to think in new ways about your own personal brand. I know a lot of people are thinking about, how to represent themselves online, how to build out their online presence, become more of a thought leader and known in your industry or space for, being on the cutting edge. And I think now is a great time to be doing all of that work. But it begins with taking the steps to really get clear and get precise with how you want to communicate that. And we want to be there for you as you're sort of building out your new narrative. So, Christina, are you ready for a little?
And Yanni, the question is, are you ready?
I don't think I'm ready for all this jelly, but since I'm not Beyonce.
Wait a minute. You're making Beyonce references when today it's all about her husband, Jay-Z. Okay. I want to love you.
I give credit where credit is due. Okay.
So, this is the get your hustle on. It only makes sense that we would sing this hook. So go for it, and Yeti.
I'm a hustler, baby. I just want you to know it ain't where I've been, but where I'm about to go.
Now I just wanna love you and tell you who I am. I forgot. Wait, what's the? I forgot. Wait. Where did it go?
And
Sorry.
with all this cash,
You can forget your man. Now give it to me. All right. Well, we will spare you any more of this, but
so we know that we can't be rappers, okay? We've
actually,
never.
if this was Snoop Dogg's "Drop It Like a Hot," I totally could have killed that. But
Oh,
I haven't listened to this one in a while. Sorry, Jay.
Okay, so we'll throw this out to the crowd. Do you think, in terms of spring cleaning, our skills, we should take rapping off the list, or should we keep it on?
We could maybe, tweak it.
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Remember to get your hustle on in whatever fashion most suits you, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a beautiful day, everyone.
Peace. Bye. Bye.